So first of all, about me, I'm Erik Vollstädt. I'm Bitnation's lead ambassador, and basically I've been involved in Bitnation since early 2015. And I'm going to different meetups and conferences and like doing representative work. But I was doing this more as a free time thing and just to see like what's going on. But now, since the end of the last year, I'm like really deeply involved and like trying to get the message out there and going from city to city and building up the Bitnation community. And also recruiting new ambassadors and coordinating the ambassador network, and always looking for new ideas and new partnerships. So yeah, to just start this off, I will show you a video about Bitnation.
Before nations, before borders, there was the Pangea supercontinent. Since then, the world has been divided by tectonic shifts, widening oceans, and stifling politics. Nation-states are crumbling under the weight of local and global challenges that they seem incapable of solving. Rather than embracing a borderless world and increasing personal freedoms, governments and multilateral organizations have overseen a surge in bureaucracy, protectionism, and ever greater intrusions into our personal lives. To prevent a drift towards tyranny, we need drastic change. Pangea is Bitnation's decentralized jurisdiction platform. Using Pangea, you can build voluntary nations, agree contracts, and resolve disputes with other citizens, and access the services you need. This is our vision of jurisdiction as a service, a global market for governance services. The Pangea Arbitration Token, or PAT, is an Ethereum-based in-app token that powers the Pangea platform. When you create a contract, complete a contract, or resolve a dispute on Pangea, you receive non-tradable reputation tokens through Lucy, our AI bot. Accumulating reputation tokens earns you tradable PAT tokens. This ensures that you can't buy a good reputation or acquire it through popularity, but if you earn one, you will be rewarded. Imagine a world where people can freely choose which voluntary nations and jurisdictions they want to be part of. A world where voluntary nations offer a choice of services under their own laws and policies and compete for citizens in a free market that rewards good governance. You too can be part of the future of governance by joining the Pangea token sale. Welcome to the Internet of Sovereignty. Welcome to Pangea.
Yeah, so about why I'm doing all of this and why I think this really matters. So I come from an anarchist background, and I was looking for ways how to, let's say, change the world we live in, and to figure out ways how to opt out from this, from the social contract that we live in. So for a long time I was debating politics and thinking about how you can change things from within the system, but then I realized, like it's expressed here in the meme, that much rather than trying to give all your energy just to change something from within the system, you could just build a new system or a new model that makes the old one obsolete. So Cody Wilson also said here, increasingly all political questions that we could fight about have been relegated to an administrative sphere. So I could spend my entire career becoming one member of some segment of the government, yelling as hard as I could for many years, making a career. Or I could write software that totally explodes the paradigm, right? So the idea behind this is to, instead of waiting for permission from the society that you live in today, you could just write code and use this and build a web of trust and a peer-to-peer network where you can already act upon all the things that you're coding, and you do not need to wait for this permission. So the essential question that we pose with Bitnation is, would you like to choose your government services just the same way you choose your phone provider or any other things that you choose on a regular basis, and you do not have any things that keep you from switching just like you have in the governance systems today? So one of our ambassadors, Tetsuishi, said, the blockchain is not just for money, it's there for brand new governance structures, replacing the nation-state concept from the Napoleon era. Digital nomads like me know that national borders are imaginary. Our activities are global, but most governance systems are still for locals only. The government marriage system is one of the most obsolete systems today. Marriage is a very personal matter, but is being enforced by governments, and the laws are so different in each country. So Tetsuishi is a digital nomad. He's from Japan, but he lives in Thailand and other countries, and he's not dependent on the Japanese governance system because he can move to other jurisdictions and choose what he likes the best. But these digital nomads already know that there are many things that are completely independent from the place where you live. That there are things that should be universal, you know, that should not depend on your geographic location, that transcend these borders. So also with the marriage system, you have many countries today that make it so hard for you to marry if you're gay or have some other sexual orientations. And these kind of things, these questions should not be something that the government should pick their nose into. It should be a very personal thing that should be agreed upon voluntarily between two parties without any middlemen in between. So what we have today is a global geographical governance oligopoly, which we know as the nation states. And these nation states, the conflict between the nation states lead to war, injustice, and also the system of how they are being governed leads to corruption and taxes. And the current governance providers, they are not competing for clients or for customers in their territory. Like they have the monopoly in their geographic jurisdiction. So because they have no competition, they have no incentive to offer or to improve their services. So yeah, what happens is that people just keep paying taxes and just hope to get a good return from it, but you have no transparency, no idea what actually happens to your contribution to society, and you just accept things as they are because you think it would not run any other way. Another one of our ambassadors, Pedro Rivera, said, I want to create tools that people can use to manage themselves as society. The conventional law-based system is very weak for the society we live in nowadays. People with enough money or intelligence can manipulate and use it against society, as we have seen many times. Pedro Rivera himself is from Colombia, and in countries like that, you know that politics is more of a popularity contest than about actual content. And the elite and people with a lot of money can just do through lobbyism and through, let's say, connections and nepotism influence society. And yeah, the normal people have no way to stand against this. So what these governments offer to their citizens is more of a broken promise than their actual representation of their voice. So what we with Bitnation offer is Pangea. It's the software that can be used to create binding peer-to-peer smart contracts with a decentralized mobile chat interface. And also, apart from making agreements, you'll be able to resolve these disputes that arise from these agreements through a peer-to-peer market for arbitration services. Also, you will be able to create and join virtual nations. So the case for this app is that we have already 3.6 billion cell phone users. You see people everywhere are becoming addicted to cell phones. But also in the developing world, more and more people are using it. In fact, most of cell phone users are in the developing world, 60% of them. And yeah, we are mostly using chat applications already for conversations, but also for informal agreements. And the global legal services market is about $600 billion per year. So why did we choose to do everything as an app and not as a platform? Because we realized that all business or any interaction actually comes from a conversation. The conversation is the key to everything. So instead of forcing people to move to just another platform, you just pick them up where they are today, you just give them a better chat interface and a very highly encrypted one. And moreover, the mesh, we're creating a mesh network called Pantalasa. So Pantalasa was the ocean around the supercontinent Pangea. And Pantalasa basically lets you have, enables you to have communication that is not stored on any central server, where everyone serves as a node, as a host, and as a client at the same time. And it can work not only off-chain without blockchains, but it can also work offline. So it can work as a sneaker net also in developing countries with bad internet coverage. And you can allow people to have local networks and to do things in a much more secure way when they were doing it in a black market style before. Now you give them the legal framework of the blockchain jurisdiction instead of just doing things informally. So yeah, you have 2 billion unbanked adults in the world, which have, because of a lack of documentation or lack of administration, no bank accounts and no ways to access to the financial system that we can take advantage of here in the developed world. And if you take these 2 billion adults as one economy, as the system D, you have a $10 trillion economy, which is the second biggest after the US. So you have a huge market and a huge part of the human population that is still looking for a way to access our standard of living. So apart from this, you also have a big imposition in the world, which is known as visa. So people, yeah, who just happen to be born in other countries than us have bad passports. And yeah, so you have both of these things. That lots of people have bad passports and are unbanked. And one of our ambassadors, Christopher Feierman, he said, passports are by no means necessary. Unfortunately, the global apartheid condemns millions of people to stay in their impoverished home countries. My hopes rest in the Bitnation platform, which possibly provides everyone in the world with a unique ID on the blockchain, which could be recognized as official travel documents by governments. So the long-term goal is not only to allow people to do agreements and business between each other, but also to have a world citizenship that they can use in order to travel and to identify themselves instead of their local national ID. So this is what it could look like. You basically just need to scan the QR code and you will find the timestamp on the blockchain. It could be on Ethereum blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain, or any other blockchain that you will have in the future. The mesh network Pantalasa is built in a way that you can migrate it to other blockchains. So we're blockchain agnostic. Here you have the exact date and the moment when it was timestamped. You can find the block, and it also has an expiration date. So you have to renew it. In this case, it's done through a photo, but we actually are looking for ways to do passports without biometrics, because our founder, Suzanne Turkowski-Kutempov, she thinks that biometrics on the blockchain will lead to the next genocide, because you can just filter out people on the public database based on their on their ethnicity. This would be really bad. So yeah, we're looking for ways to solve this issue of having ID and anonymity at the same time. So blockchain authorization is an effective way to record marriage contracts, wills, birth certificates, childcare contracts, land titles, or business deals. And at the same time, these documents are permanently secured with easy access, and the blockchain can always prove your authenticity or your ownership of these documents. And yeah, you probably also already heard about blockchain before, so I do not need to repeat these things. Another one of our ambassadors in Ghana said, most of the properties in my country have no titles because of cumbersome process and corruption. A decentralized land administration accessible to everyone is what is needed, and the blockchain offers that very cheap. Sooner or later, the state is going to become obsolete. So in the case of Ghana, you have services that are poorly administered or not even existent. So a lot of local farmers who have huge land territory, they cannot monetize their land because they have no legal ownership over their land. So what they would need is the blockchain jurisdiction to put their lands as a timestamp on the blockchain and to administer this through through virtual nation because it's not being done through their local jurisdiction. And it would be much easier than to build up the whole administration bureaucracy in the Ghana nation state. So Bitnation already has nowadays more than 14,000 citizens, I think, which signed up on the website. All of this will be moved to the app as soon as this is mature enough. We have more than 2,000 open source contributors and more than 100,000 lines of codes gathered and accumulated in the past 3.5 years, and more than 200 embassies and consulates. So basically, what is an embassy? Any Bitnation citizen can just offer their personal living space or working space to other Bitnation citizens and work together and collaborate. And the idea is it's like sort of like couch surfing, but for a specific ideology. In this case, for people who share the idea of of world citizenships and of transcending the nation-state paradigm. But you can also work together or bring people together. I will give you some examples later on. We already had more than 5,000 contracts notarized on the public notary that we built together with the Estonia program. And about the technology stack that we're using the Ethereum blockchain. We're using parts of code from React.js, IPFS, Golang, Rootstock, but also parts of Secure Scuttlebutt. And what will all of this enable you to do? The idea is that you can choose your code of law, the one that you think fits your needs the best. So it could be common law, civil code, Sharia law, UN law, many other things, or even your own law. And that these laws will be enforced through smart contracts, which can be created through templates that you can even access through emoticons in a chat interface. So it should be done in a very intuitive way that even your grandma should be able to do it. Just like the internet needed to evolve until everyone could just use Facebook, even though we do not understand HTML. And as well, you will be able to choose your arbitrator. It could either be an arbitrator who you could choose based on his reputation, or it could be third-party applications like crowd juries. So all of this is just the very beginning and infrastructure for something much bigger. The idea is that there will be lots of third-party applications which will specialize in specific governance problems in their local jurisdictions. So it could be about marriage, it could be business incorporation, it could be a basic income protocol that Johanna is working on. Could be insurances like health insurance, unemployment insurance, land titles that we mentioned before, birth certificates, security, actual physical security. There's already third-party DApp called B Umbrella that is specifically working on this, about providing security through former military veterans or white hat hackers that offer you cyber security. So they're already building their own governance application. And all of this is something that anyone can build upon because this is an open source movement. And even if you do not like how we do our things, you can use parts of Bitnation's code to create your own governance applications, because we're just at the very beginning opening up a new market, a governance market, which did not exist before because we only had a monopoly. So where does all of this come from? We're not like most of the ICOs nowadays that just came out of nowhere. We already have a history of 3.5 years. So Bitnation was founded by Student Tarkovsky-Templov in July 2014. And we started with some pilots, like the first blockchain marriage, the first citizen, which was Janila Lois on the blockchain, or the first land title on the blockchain. So we just proved that it was possible to do these timestamps. Then we were doing the first iteration of Pangea with Horizon blockchain, but it was not fully implemented because we realized that it would be too slow and it would not be good if all the communication would be on the blockchain, because then you would have no privacy. Further, we had the refugee crisis of 2015 and offered blockchain IDs to status refugees, so they could use this as documentation. We did the collaboration with Estonia for the public notary. Then in 2016, we launched the second iteration and did this already with the constitution on Ethereum, and wanted to use secure scuttlebutt, but we realized this would also be a too centralized chat interface or chat provider. So we decided to create our own mesh network that would be fully independent from any external providers. And in 2017, we decided to create our own token, the PAD token, Pangea arbitration token, and use parts of IPFS, and we won the NetExpo award for the refugee emergency response. And now, since the end of 2017, we have already had the private sale, and now we're about to start the public sale of the PAD token at the end of March. And we're building our own AI bot for the location of reputation tokens on the Pangea app. We will go into that later on. But basically, there's one tradable token and 3 non-tradable tokens that will be incorporated in Pangea. And yeah, in general, now we're about to launch. We already have the app on the Google Play Store, and that you can already experiment with. And by the end of March, we already want to have a really much more mature app that you can use for smart contracts to create nations, to join nations, to leave nations, and to already have agreements on the Ethereum blockchain. So another really interesting aspect about all of this is that not only individuals can opt out from the system, but entire nations. So you could imagine that some tribe in the Amazonian rainforest, or maybe even Catalonia in Spain, want to opt out from their jurisdiction because they want to reclaim their sovereignty. And they can do so through the blockchain, because here they have a new way to back up their legitimacy through consensus, through peer-to-peer network and the web of trust. So instead of having the arms and military of a government that says our claim is true, you will have a claim for maybe for land or for something else that these nations think they have been deprived of. They can back up their claims through a worldwide network of people who share their beliefs, and I think this will help them to regain their independence. So further on in the future, after the public sale, we will have funds to also help local governance projects, and ideally everyone can become sort of social entrepreneur to solve local governance projects and to put their not ID, but their idea on this platform to to get votes. And it's like sort of tokenized crowdfunding, where you can start to implement your governance projects and ideas through Bitnation. So this is of course something in the future, but I think it's a really interesting idea to help local DApp entrepreneurs to kickstart their projects. So finally, our founder, Susanne Turkowski-Tempelhoff, she said, "What we're doing is making nation-state governments entirely irrelevant. No government, whether democratic or autocratic, can survive without the consent of its subjects. In the same way Bitcoin has transformed the financial systems, Bitnation will irreversibly change the political system and the course of history." So we have already been covered by lots of different media outlets. So we already gained quite a media presence. We have been on CNN, Vice, TEDx, Wall Street Journal, just to mention a few. So we have gone through, let's say a big phase of awareness and creating community, and now we think it's time to scale things up, to build the software and to start to actually implement our ideas. So thanks a lot for your for your attention. Thanks. So now to your questions and criticism or ideas that you want to mention. Now it's your turn. I want to have more participation because it's not just about me.
So I am curious about how the arbitration on contract disputes works.
Yeah.
Like so say I registered my land on the like the Pangea platform, and I sold my land not to another person, and I've conducted that sale on Pangea. So I'm guessing that that's something that will be possible, right? So, but if, for example, the buyer hasn't received the goods or the land in this case, what course of action does he or she have? What can
the course of action is basically that he will call upon the arbitrator to look at the case and to say or to verify whether the land was actually let's say if the property titles have been moved to the other person or not, and the arbitrator will use his key basically to this multi-sig wallet to decide whether the funds should be rolled back or it was done properly, and the seller or the owner of the seller of the land will actually get the money.
Okay, so how does the arbitrator know? I mean, what kind of information does the arbitrator?
So basically, the two parties of the contract already have to choose the arbitrator at the moment they set up the agreement. So from the very start, the arbitrator will have to monitor what's happening.
Yeah.
And he will be, let's say, involved in this process. So he will know, like, when things are like being done in the wrong way. But I also have to say that for the very beginning, I'm not 100% sure if it will be possible to transfer or move physical goods. Like in the beginning, it's more like about money and like digital goods, I think, that you can put, that you can compute and put in a smart contract. But for example, if I use my house as a collateral for an agreement, and for some reason I'm not able to keep up with what I was saying before, the house will be given away. I could, for example, if the other person then takes the house, I could go to my nation-state jurisdiction and say this contract was invalid because it was not conforming to the local law.
Yeah.
They could just claim back the house, because then it would be the military of the local government against the individual who has no one else just to take this house, because it's like anything else would lead to violent conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's where my understanding is unclear right now, because the separation between the digital world and the physical.
Yeah.
Because so right now you're targeting, the digital assets. Or,
I think that's something that's that is easily implementable. That can be very easily implemented. But about physical goods, we will also need the nation states recognition, because if they do not recognize what is happening through agreements on Pangea, basically nothing will move physically. Like no machine will move from one place to another without having to fear that the other person can just say, "Oh no, this was wrong, and I just want to have my money in the machine back," or they could abuse this, let's say, loophole. That there's still no government recognition. So it depends on the efforts of our diplomatic ambassador network that will also try to negotiate with individual nation states to recognize our citizens and their sovereignty and the laws that are being enforced through voluntary agreements. But it's a tricky question. Maybe there will be other ways to do this. Like maybe it could be done through tokens. Maybe you could somehow restrict access to physical goods by having them like as smart property. That somehow
digital locks or something.
Something like this, or with cars, or like Like the more we also move in this IoT world, the more this will also be enforceable.
Yeah, right. And like, so you based on the Ethereum blockchain for now.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, but in kind of my head, that doesn't make sense so much because the way I see it, I mean, my understanding is pretty basic right now, so
yeah,
fine. But the way I see it is, it's probably more appropriate for you to have a Bitnation blockchain, and for all the various different nations to then issue their own currencies on that blockchain. Maybe I don't know, because so far you've got one token that is tradable, so that, but the universal token across all nations, right? So so each nation could have their own currency.
Yeah, that's true.
Because
I did
they
mention that,
to manage their own economy, right? So
yeah, actually, every nation that can be created on Pangea should be able to create their own ERC20 token.
Yeah.
Which will be on the Ethereum blockchain. But it's true, we also want to implement Lisk. So that would also make us more independent from Ethereum and allow us to do many new things. But in general, we do not want to have our own blockchain because we think it's like you spend way too much resources just to upkeep all the nodes and to run their own blockchain. And also, we know that right now the market is not right. Like, another solution will come up, and we're specializing in our solution on the application part, and others are working on the infrastructure part. So maybe when EOS or I don't know, like Bitnation or any other project will be more in a more mature stage, we can just switch to them, and we're building or designing Pangea in a way that it's blockchain agnostic. So that's, let's say, the part for now, and that we show that it works with Ethereum blockchain, because it's the mostly used blockchain for applications at the moment. But maybe in the future, that will not be the best solution anymore, because it's taking too much resources for mining, maybe too much transaction fees. Maybe there will be better solutions.
It can be moved.
Yes.
Because also currently Ethereum is kind of becoming more centralized, or it's under the control of one person, to an extent.
Let's say the miners believe in the Ethereum foundation.
Yeah.
But as you could see in after the DAO hack, there was a split. Just as a proof of concept, there was
Classic
Ethereum
where
and Ethereum.
The real guys have gone. I mean, where the guys who believe in decentralization have gone. Well, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, in that case, it's very much dependent on what the foundation says. So yeah, we will have to see if there will be another blockchain for application and for programming that is more decentralized and that has solved like these issues.
And then we can move to that. So obviously we're not stuck with Ethereum basically. Which is really good. I mean, if some other blockchain, as you made clear your concerns, which makes sense. If we do find ourselves in that position where we think, oh, Ethereum is centralized or pretty much go in there, and we don't want that, we can change it to another blockchain which is more centralized. But obviously, that comes with time. So that I think is a good thing that we are.
Also, ideally, you will be able to move your nation that you built on Bitnation to just fork the code and maybe to even run it on your own blockchain if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you will not even be dependent on Bitnation itself. Like, we help you, we give you the tools to build up your own nation, but you will be able to just, or at any moment and any time, all the code is open source. You can just fork the code and create your own version of Bitnation if you're not happy with the way we run it. And the idea is really to have competition, so we get this whole thing running, and we start a new market for governance services.
So if somebody does that, there's a hard fork of a nation. They move to another blockchain.
That's not a hard fork. It's just a fork.
Right. Okay.
So
they'll still be somehow connected to Pangea. They can issue their own currency. And
they can already through Pangea issue their own currency. But also when they do the fork, they can be completely independent if they're running their own nodes and their own mesh network and so on. But it's also a question of economics, let's say. If you want to spend money in running all these things, or if you trust Pangea to do these things.
So what's the ultimate vision? Is it for the decentralized governance to coexist with traditional systems, or for it to completely replace it?
So yeah, that's an interesting part, the transition and also the long-term vision. So I believe that nation states could also offer their services on Pangea. So for example, like Estonia is already taking this step to digitalize their services and to think of themselves as of a provider of jurisdiction services outside of their geographic borders. So people outside of Estonia can sign up as online as e-citizens of Estonia and incorporate their business in Estonia, even though they live somewhere else, and pay taxes to Estonia. So the same way, other nations could also offer different services, maybe not business incorporation, maybe health insurance, maybe something else, as a voluntary service, as just as the e-citizenship, as Estonia is also a voluntary service on Pangea. And in that way, it will also help us to drive the recognition process, because it would be a win-win situation where they get a larger, let's say, customer base all over the world through us. And at the same time, our other nations will be more recognized and our services will be more recognized in general by the local jurisdictions that work with us. But the long-term vision, I would say, is to be able to choose your governance services, not the whole bulk of government that you have today, but individual things like health insurance, like I don't know, like who's building the roads, who's doing that, like that you do not have like the whole package anymore, but that you have specialized providers of all of these that compete for reputation and globally, and that you can at any time opt out. That's the thing, the non-geographical opt-out. That's the long-term vision, that anyone can opt out of a system that they live from, that they live in, without having to move to another country, because that's the big thing that we have today. If you want to move into another, or if you want to take advantage of a different jurisdiction, you need to leave behind your culture, your language, your family, your friends, and everything. You have to move somewhere else, find a new job, and so on. Just because you want to take advantage of a different jurisdiction, of a different governance service provider. I mean, that doesn't make sense in any other industry. So here we see it's like very stuck in the past, in the times of the Napoleon era, and the Westphalian Treaty, and it would be optimal that you could just by swiping on your app just opt out from the one service and just move into another one. You can make votes in the matter of a second, then instead of having to wait for 4 years to change something.
I've got another question. So this is all like civil contracts. What's the vision for the criminal side?
Yeah,
I was going to ask that myself.
So of course, for now, we could not offer, let's say, police or sort of threat of violence or any sort of criminal law. Of course, the umbrella, for example, would already go in that direction by having private security, but that's something we are not focusing on right now. Like you said, we focus on the contract law, but it's true for the moment when it comes to criminal law, we have to rely on the nation state and on their jurisdiction. But maybe the app entrepreneurs will also come up with solutions for that. So it's really the sky's the limit. Like, it's all about our creativity. Like, we're just laying the foundation now, and it's just about, it's a matter of time until we come up with a solution for these problems.
So when it comes to countries, the current existing countries, governments, traditional governments, I'm sure there will be plenty of open-minded countries and governments that will accept and allow, like Estonia. Yeah. And I'm sure in South America, Europe, there will be Africa, Asia, there will be a lot more countries that will be willing to accept or acknowledge the existence
Yeah.
of this, but also there might be persecution.
Yeah.
So what's the vision for, let's say we're here in the UK. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to happen, but let's say you know, we are the citizens of Pangea, and we are advocating for it. We are working, you know, for it to get accepted. And suddenly something happens, and the government decides to crack down. And what happens in that situation? Like legally, like our legal team.
Yeah. So first of all, if the government decides to do that, it will just prove our point that you should be able to opt out from this kind of monstrous system that will just attack people for having chosen something voluntarily that they do not impose on anyone else. But yeah, like we will have basically lawyers or diplomatic ambassadors who know about international law, who will help our citizens to get out of jail. But that's something, let's say, more far along in the future when the government actually take note of us and start to do these kind of things. I think first of all we need to reach this critical mass that we have enough user adoption, people using Pangea for peer-to-peer contracts, and then we can start to negotiate with them, because only then they will take us seriously. And but yeah, it's about negotiating with them. And in case of a conflict, I think it's better not to defend yourself violently, because they have the upper hand, because they have the military.
Yeah, they are the government. So the founders and the developers and the team that we have are aware of the fact that the toughest part is yet to come.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's fair enough. Yeah, we can work.
In any case, it's about bringing out the idea and spreading the words. And even if this is brought down, the code is there. It's on the internet, cannot be deleted anymore. Everything is also stored on IPFS, where it is stored in a decentralized way where governments cannot crack down on it. And even if they take us down, I think this will just reinforce our very idea and the momentum, and more people will join this kind of movements. So I think the more they try to prevent us, the more they actually help us. The more things happen, like now with Brexit or Trump, and like you know, populism taking over, all of this helps us as well, because people realize that the system we live in today is not representing their voice anymore, and they should just, instead of trying to make themselves heard, just take action.
Right, and also another thing of just sort of, let's say there's a country or bulk of countries that acknowledge Pangea's passport in the future, near future. And they say, fair enough, if you have a world citizen, we'd let them in for 7 days for a visit, you know, without any passport, for example. So we'll accept your passport for a temporary, or whatever the scenario would be. How is Pangea, or how can we make sure that there's no like people that are abusing the system by basically giving wrong information just to get a passport? Or how would you verify that I am who I am?
Yes.
So then the government can trust Pangea that, look, when you say he's an ill, he is an ill. So how Pangea is going to work on that?
Yeah.
How are you going to make sure that the citizens are not just changing names and details or date of birth, or just to basically defraud people?
So that's the ID problem that also not only Bitnation but also other projects are working on to solve. So there's several initiatives like UPort. We're also waiting for the advance that we can integrate them, because this is all like an open source ecosystem where we also wait for others to improve so we can integrate their code. But I heard, for example, of a nice idea how to prove your identity without having to give away biometrics. So that's like this big fear. You could, for example, give a signature, and like signatures are unique if you take it like to the very detail. And like as of the moment, keyboards on our smartphones are done through a centralized organization called Unicode. If you could open source their code and do this as a like blockchain project, you could have like millions of keyboards, like every time for your own personal letters, and you will just have to like prove the way you write some words or something to prove your identity. So this could be one way to do it, but there will be probably many others. So this was just something that I heard in Athens. We're not working on this yet, but it would be cool like to hear like other suggestions from others how to solve the ID problem without biometrics.
So for any existing current government to accept our citizens as as people who say who they are, they need to have a lot of confidence in Pangea's, the way you issue IDs for them. So for that, that's one of the reasons I asked this question is I want to understand how do you go about, because obviously I do like privacy, I do like to not give biometrics, and just like anyone else, but at the same time, you want to understand why governments do that. It's because there are people that abuse the system. There are people that would maybe trying to flee a country after committing a crime, for example, and just quickly go on Pangea, make an ID, and because a certain island in South America accepts Pangea as a passport, just make any passport, go there. So I think that any government would want to first, be very confident of your verification process. That when you issue a passport, that's a real passport.
So now we're experimenting with the laissez-passer passport that conforms to the standards of basically what status refugees are also using today. I'm not 100% sure how it's done. Like I think there's like some things that would give away like it has things like heat, it has the eye color, and I don't know if you have to give like place of birth or something like that. But yeah, we're working on that, and the idea is to already have some preliminary passport that you can show at the border control. And first of all, when you try this out, already have the other passport with you, but just show it and see how they react. Because when they say this is not legit, you can say, but this conforms with the standard of a laissez-passer passport. And then if they resist, you can show your other passport. But the more you do this, the more they will get used to it, and the more it becomes a standard. So ideally, we will have like many people crossing borders all the time with Bitnation passports. So it will like establish itself as a new form of identification.
No, that's understood. I mean, I'll try to give a scenario. Let's say I just want to hide or run away from something horrible that I've done, and I just change my name, my date of birth, and some other details, and try to go through. So let's say the way you said that it will be standardized or normalized. And if I do that after it's been normalized, they'll just accept me for whatever name or details I've given, and now I've entered their country or whatever the area. So what do we do about that, or what the vision of Pangea is?
So I guess that what you are asking for is how can we prevent, or do we need, so like firstly, do we need to prevent people having more than one ID? And then I mean, firstly, I don't know if we should, but I guess if you want to, then you should be able to technologically, but also without giving without giving your like DNA or that, or like scan of retina or something. So there must be a unique way to figure out if a person is that same person or not. Because if your DNA is your DNA, then you cannot get another pass. Then you cannot get another ID or validation.
And if somebody does that, and somebody does abuse it, let's say, the scenario I'm trying to give, there's one very nice country that says, you know what, Pangea, we're okay with you. And they let someone in, and then someone really horrible abuses the system and gets in there and does something silly, then that country's trust in Pangea is going to be damaged. They'll say, you know what, we can't take it.
But I guess that if you prevent people getting a second ID based on, let's say, for example, DNA, although DNA is not your preferred solution, but let's say DNA, then they will not be able to get a second ID.
But we're trying to eliminate that too. You see, we are sort of against.
Right. So I guess that you have to find a replacement for DNA that cannot be changed, that a person cannot change willingly. So there are ways to do that. I mean, I don't know if you know, for example, that people for example, everyone walks in a certain way, and they can't change that. It is easy to recognize who it is just from the way that they walk. So I don't know, you could just video someone walking, and it's hard for them to change that because you cannot change that. So, so I'm just like coming up with an example, right?
No, that kind of,
so I kind of haven't solved the problem right now in 20 seconds.
Yeah, like, no, I'm sure
there are non-biometric ways of doing it. I would just say so.
Yeah, no, that is right, and I'm sure the Pangea developers and the founders are aware of this. This will arise.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the questions I have in my mind that I'm trying to struggle to understand.
Yeah.
I understand that it's premature, and it will take time before we even get to the stage where we'll have to use Pangea passport. We've continued to use our passport for a very long time. But it's just a question, just like how could we not have biometrics and not tag people like the government do, because we want to give greater freedoms and privacy. At the same time, stop abuse. Just make sure there is no leeway for someone, because even in this current government system, there are very powerful people, criminal people that do abuse, and they do get away with, having fake names or, bribing ministers and stuff, and they're living and committing their crimes, financial crimes, especially, one of the largest criminal activity in the world is financial crimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that even with Pangea, that could be abused in the future. So, what's your take on that? Or how do we get around that without compromising our privacy at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, that's like this duality that we're trying to solve. Yeah, I mean, the ID question is something that everyone's working on right now in the blockchain space. And it's also kind of stalling, let's say, the overall development of blockchain in general. So yeah, I think the more people work on this, the faster we'll find a solution. But I cannot tell you right now, like, the one solution. Like he said, could be by the way you walk, could be the way you ride. You can come up with many different things that are not biometrics to show, like, if someone was blacklisted or if someone has a bad reputation for committing a crime, that you cannot get like just another identity and commit the same crime again.
Yeah. So that would be worked on.
I mean, it also depends on the initiative of the open source developers. Like, everyone who is by himself, like, really committed to this, will put more efforts into this than someone who's working now on the infrastructure of the legal database or of making smart contracts. So we're already focusing on just the very beginning to make all of these questions even possible. And after that, we will only get to have like free time for these kind of things.
Although I mean, there is a part of me that does not actually think that even if someone has committed a crime, they don't, stop being, human. So, so if they want to migrate to another country, fine.
No, my question wasn't that.
Yeah. But like, I mean, fraud can happen in there as well. Yeah. So I know your question was related to fraud within that, but I think there are other ways of preventing that. I mean, there are people thinking about this problem, lots of them. I mean, I think about this problem as well. So I think that somebody will solve it at some point.
But yeah, it's a nice question, because also you lose before, because everything is timestamped.
Right.
You have it in the blockchain and the history of all the transactions, and you basically, if you're blacklisted once, you will be ostracized, and like you will be an outsider of society forever. So this is horrible. I mean, also in current law system, you have some sort of like crimes that over time, I don't know the word in English, but that lose their like after 10 years, they can it will be forgotten in a way, you know, like, or not forgotten, but that you can get out of prison, or that you can I forgot the word for this. So
She should know. She
Yeah, I
know
know,
it.
but when you get words, I forget them too. That's
That criminal history and all that stuff. You get 6 years or something like that. There's a system they searching the clicking shots and all that details for time. And somebody is not well behaved for 6 years.
Yeah.
Good.
So in a way, it decays. Like it's not forever.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Sure, I think that's what we lack in the blockchain right now, or maybe that's
Like they're saying, it's too early for that kind of thing to find a solution to that.
right.
It's a
But
big
we do
problem
need
to-
it, right?
yeah.
Because we
do need
can't have, like, you know, like if you even look at cryptocurrency, for example, like a basic blockchain, then I don't know if you need a record of who bought a pizza with Bitcoin 20 years ago. You know, I mean, like there's a point at which it doesn't make sense as one individual transaction. I mean, at least in my head. So I don't know. I think that because then you are transferring that whole blockchain on all of these different nodes, and they have to process it. I mean, right now it's only 30 or 40 gigabytes, but over time it might be terabytes. Now, do we need that? I don't know.
So the physical structures we have now, they have an archiving processes in it, so they archive the records.
Yeah,
which
right.
are
Yeah,
not needed.
but yeah.
So compliance, the PCI and all that stuff, they have these compliance things. They archive stuff, move them, offload them from the real system. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
This
I'm
is a bigger
sure.
problem.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, well, you've just raised a good point there about blockchain, that we're keeping everything forever. But also, I think in the future, when the MBs, when it goes to TBs, terabytes, I'm sure by that time we'll have a new technology where terabytes would be today's MBs. So
Yeah, sure.
but I get your point that it's something that is going to stay there forever. And that's, I think, in my view, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, I see what you mean. But I think it's a good thing because it's very transparent, very, very transparent. We'd probably never need to know what happened, 30 years ago with a single transaction. But what we know is that it will be there if you need to know.
Right. Yeah. So I think there must be some sort of archiving process that varies depending on type of transaction.
So your concern is to basically the load on the blockchain.
But it's also like if you build, dApps on top of the blockchain, you need to derive some some kind of analysis from it. So the more clutter you have in that data, the kind of harder it becomes to get what is relevant to you. So like if you just want to build something relevant to say that I want to build a new dApp that delivers a new way to buy CryptoKitties or something, and so I don't need to know how the first 20 CryptoKitties were sold, because they were sold in a slightly different process, let's say. So I am just concerned about the last 20 transactions. So it just reduces clutter because the more data you have, the more the noise as well. So the signal to noise just drops a lot. The noise becomes overwhelming, and the signal's like a part of it.
Well, that's understandable. From my understanding is that blockchain is also timestamped. If you're looking for the last 20 transactions, you'll get the last 20 transactions. You don't have to go in the last 2,000 transactions. So, it's timestamped. So let's say if I wanted something 8 o'clock in 2015 on Ethereum blockchain, or sorry, Bitcoin blockchain, I would go exactly there.
Yeah,
I don't have to go through.
Right, but I was thinking more in terms of a self-evolving blockchain that knows what is relevant and what's not. I mean, that's
that will be something for a new currency or a new.
Right. Yeah. So I don't. Yeah. So I think that's.
I did think about this once. I did think that maybe 5 years ago, 5 years later, the ledger is going to be so heavy when it comes to, as you said, terabytes. And every new miner's got to download the whole thing. But then I thought maybe in 5 years we'll have internet speed so fast that whole thing would be like MBs today. And then the same way with the storage, we'd have storage, large storages in small devices that it wouldn't be a problem. So I think that is what's going to happen. You know, there is no going around it because blockchain is built now. You can't change. Yeah, you can have a new, maybe a new blockchain that, let's say, destroys after 20 years or something, or archives. But what we have now is how it is, and I think is good. No, that is a reasonable concern that you raised there.
But I think all of this goes back to like which is the best blockchain and about the different mining mechanisms, which still have to like also mature more and still not considered consolidated.
Yeah.
So like also some time has to pass until like we know, okay, now I think the best is like delegated proof of stake. It's like the fastest, and EOS, for example, promises to have like new blocks issued every 1.5 seconds or something like this. So it's like super fast, and so it should improve the like efficiency and so on. But maybe there is different concepts like with DEX, like with Tango. Like it doesn't even have to be blockchain. It could be something different, or maybe something entirely different, like with Bitnation, where or shards. You know, like when you go into this, it's like really mind blowing. Like So yeah, there's like so many aspects to this that the blockchain industry itself needs to sort of resolve.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's very early stages even for blockchain. Yeah, I know it's been so many years, but I think it's still in the first stages. Even blockchain and cryptocurrency itself is very, very new, and it's going to change a lot for the better.
So we're actually just finishing it. It's around on the very.
No, it was related to the Google Maps, and it was taken to the other side of town.
Oh Jesus Christ!
Another business center, and then I asked,
sorry,
guys, no, it's just another one. So yeah. I should be here on this half an hour before. So.
That's fine. But yeah, we have finished now. So you got any questions you can ask Erik? I mean, I'm sure you haven't seen the presentation, but did you read about it? Or?
I read a little bit and met Erik in Barcelona.
Oh, so
3 or 4 weeks ago.
All right.
Yeah.
So, can you share these like slides?
Yes.
Are they on Bitnation?
Sure.
So.
I can send you via email.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, please. Or just
Sure.
Yeah, I can send you my email address, but I don't think you'll have it on like already.
No. Like I think it's like because of the video, it's too big. It takes 20 megabytes.
Yes. No. I like don't need the video. I think the video is probably there on your slide.
Okay. Yeah.
I just want the slide so I can
sure.
think about it.
Yeah.
And we can join your Slack as well, or
like, not anymore because it was like shut down. Like we had too many pending invitations, so that's why it was like blacklisted or something. We tried to like resolve this, but it's impossible.
Okay.
So now we do everything on Telegram.
Okay.
We have like Telegram channels.
So can we join your Telegram?
Yes.
How can we do that?
Basically, I can post the link on Meetup, and it's also in the description of the Meetup. Like it's
okay. Fine.
Bottom, like there's Telegram.
Yeah, Meetup. You know you go there, all the links.
Yeah, there were a lot of links. I didn't look at all.
Telegram links.
I joined from there. Okay.
Even though it's in the Facebook link and not in the Meetup. I will put it also in the Meetup. It's true.
No, I'm on the face.
Yeah, on Facebook is definitely. Yeah. Perfect. And for anything else, you can just write me either in the Meetup group or on Facebook. And yeah, we'll hope to organize another meetup in London soon, or if not me, it will be in here. And yeah.
Telegram link is not on the Meetup, so.
But it's on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll put it
You'll have it.
I'll actually put it in.
So you've done the presentation. Now, what was the main purpose of this? Did I miss something in the minutes?
Oh yeah.
You probably have missed.
Like the main purpose is to allow people to opt out from their governance system non-geographically, without having to move to another island or something where you experiment with new systems. You should be able to experiment just where you are today, just keep living as you live today, and to be able to choose different governance service provider without, doing through.
I got the concept of Bitnation, the presentation itself. As in, why do we have a meetup today?
The idea is just to start up, let's say, the physical community, because until now it's just virtual, and like you travel from city to city and to see like who's already there or who knows about it, who wants to get involved, to recruit new ambassadors, who also want to organize meetups in other towns, and so then after the introduction, when we now I think on February 17th we will launch the more like really much more mature version of the app on both the iOS and the Google Play Store. And then we can start with workshops, we can create nations, we can discuss different constitutions, we can discuss like possible new apps that can be evolved on top of the nations. And then we can like be much more hands-on. Like until now it was just to like awareness and to discuss the concept. Any more comments or questions?
I have one last question.
Yeah.
So how does Bitnation fund itself?
So now we have the token sale, like you've seen. We already had the private sale where we raised $3 million, and now we will have the public sale. The goal is to raise $30 million. And after that, we have the business model inside of the Pangea app, where for every smart contract, basically, for every agreement that you make, for every nation that you create, or for every smart contract template that you issue, because there will be a market of smart contract templates that compete also for reputation. So for every of these, you will have costs, like also against as an anti-spam measure, but also to finance the maintenance of the whole system, also to like have funds for all the different things that we do, and also for new governance projects. And by the way, I forgot to mention the whole reputation system. So basically, when you create an agreement, when you complete it in the end, you will earn a reputation. This is done not with humans, but it's done through an AI bot.
Okay.
So we're building Lucy. Lucy will basically put a token on your public address that is non-tradable. So it has all the same properties like an ERC20 token, just not the aspect that it can be traded. And you can use that, basically just to show that you're someone who has a good reputation and to get more clients. But the other two reputation tokens, they are for two different things. One is the proof of collective, it's the reputation of nations, and that is done through humans. And that's like we'll work on that right after we finish, let's say, the whole agreements thing. And then we have the proof of nomic, which is the reputation of laws, basically, of all the laws that are written on smart contracts, and that will compete also on the market for laws. So all of these three reputation tokens are non-tradable, but if you earn a good reputation, you will also get as a bonus pet tokens, which are in turn tradable. So you have the reputation incentive as well as the financial incentive to comply with the contracts that you enter.
Are the reputation tokens dependent on the type of contract, or is it just one contract, one token or something?
That's a good question. So I think at the beginning that will be like valued the same. It's like gradual. That the more you do the same, that it will like gradually be less. So it cannot be exploited, for example, for civil attacks. So for just entering the community, we will have, let's say, this kind of bonus. So people are incentivized to like do more agreements or to do something to like earn also pet tokens. But it should like gradually be less, so that the cost of doing these agreements will be higher than what you get in return for the pet tokens when you get a reputation.
because I think reputation tokens are risky, because then the people who join early get a big lead. And also if you do smaller contracts, then you can quickly build up reputation. And so it's kind of weighted towards the small transactions, but and also early movers.
So right now we're developing this, the AI bot that should determine, let's say, the value probably of these contracts, and that should also help to limit these kind of civil attacks. But yeah, it's something we're really working on right now, and I think they're also considering this possible loophole.
Yeah, but I know it's like another world, but like I see that on places like eBay, for example. Because eBay, you get a +1 feedback point for every successful completed transaction. It is like a kind of reputation system, right? But it doesn't matter if you bought a £2 thing or if you bought a £200 or a £2,000 something. So yeah, I think that's a problem in the reputation system on eBay.
I think
which might translate here.
Yeah, I mean maybe a question related to that. So when there is a contract, or if someone's trying to, let's say I want to resolve an issue, do I know who is the next person, or do they know me, or are we just numbers?
So
that be abused
just by having the Pangea wallet, you're pseudonymous. You do not give away your real identity.
So I can't use my links, my friends, and that just to try to build up.
No.
Oh no.
I mean, or yes, you could basically, because you know them physically, and you can just tell your friends to also open up Pangea wallets, but you will all have to pay for setting up all these agreements. So you have to convince them not only like to help you, but to also that everyone has to pay for these contracts that you do. But it's a good question. I mean, on one side, you would want to filter out these kind of civil attacks. On the other side, maybe it's actually a good effect that more and more people join Bitnation, so they become aware of this. So it's like it's a tricky question.
I mean, decentralization point of view. Someone powerful, someone with a bit of money trying to get on the top.
Yes. I have a question. For example, if I join Bitnation, basically I do all the, let's say, call it onboarding. What are the incentives of myself having contracts on my own nation? For example, if I'm the founder of my own nation, and all these, let's say, contracts. What are my incentives of holding this, let's say, digital identity?
Your incentive to create a nation. That you're fed up with the existing system, and that you want to customize your law. That you can create laws that are not possible today. That you can operate in ways that is not possible today.
Okay. Yeah. Once you establish your nation, how do you, for example, fund your nation? For example, you recruit citizens or something like that.
You create an ERC20 token that is tradable. And just by doing marketing, by doing things that make yourself heard, you become listed maybe on exchanges. It will first of all be exchangeable for pets. That in turn can be exchanged on other markets. So yes, you will have like this tokenized crowdfunding, let's say.
The citizens.
So basically, you can issue your own national currency, let's say.
Yeah, sort of. Because
and the citizens that are using that service are probably contributing to earnings anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just by using the token, they're already contributing.
Like without the token, if I just join a nation, would I be paying something into it to use one of their services or one of their?
Maybe if it's linked to their reputation, because like I said before, when they get a better also proof of collective reputation, they will also get pet tokens for that. So
so the citizens.
But it will also, like I say, it should be like calculated on a game theoretical point of view, that it's like only a bonus that can be abused just at the beginning to start things up, but after a gradual, let's say, reputation, they need to deliver. They need to deliver real services, and only the reputation from that can earn them pet tokens, and not just by joining them. So right. there will be, let's say, some break-even point where you can no longer just get pet tokens just for having people sign up on your nation.
Right. So the cost to the citizens is minimal.
That depends on the nation completely. Like I said, if they have a rated network for having unlimited transactions amongst each other in their nation, they will probably have to pay some sort of rent.
Tax.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to use that word, but it's reality.